Hi, my name is Svetlana and I'm an artist. I work in sculpture, painting and mosaic, and I also make artworks out of rubbish. And today I'm going to show you how to make an artwork out of rubbish, a bit like this one. Now, I'm making this workshop video as part of the East Lothian Traditional Skills Festival, and although you might not think of making an artwork out of rubbish as a traditional skill, it is in fact made in the exact same way as a traditional collage would, and it's also similar in process to a mosaic, for example, because what you're doing is you're constructing an image out of lots of different pieces of a material. Now, this workshop consists of three main parts. The first is a litter pick, the second is a cleaning and sorting of that litter, and the final is the art making. You can do all of those in one go, and that will probably take up the best part of a day. Or also you can split them up between different days depending on how much time you've got. The activity is suitable for children from P5 and up, and also for adults alike. Now, I would say if you're a child, then please make sure you've got an adult that supervises you throughout the entirety of this activity. All you're going to need for this workshop is quite a small list of regular household items. So, for your litter pick, you're going to need a bucket and a set of rubber gloves. You'll also need a couple of plastic bags or bin bags. Now, if for whatever reason you're not able to or just don't want to go out on a litter pick, that's absolutely fine. What I would say then is put on your gloves, take your bucket and go to your bin or your recycling bin and just pick out a selection of different kinds of things that you might want to use in your artwork, and then just skip to the part of the video where we're cleaning and sorting the rubbish. Now, for the cleaning and sorting, all you're going to need is some washing up liquid or any type of multi-purpose or antibacterial household cleaner. You'll also need an old sponge for dishwashing or a brush. And you'll need a couple of old cloths that you can dry your rubbish on. And finally, for the artwork, what you're going to need is an image. Mine's a picture of a swan. Yours can be of anything you want, really. This is not my own photograph. I got this from Wikipedia, and it's by Yerpo. Mine is printed out, but yours can be on just saved to your device if you don't have access to a printer. You're also going to need a universal glue, ideally, and a set of kitchen scissors. And finally, you're going to need a piece of cardboard or card, which is going to be the base for your artwork. And hopefully this workshop will demonstrate to you how you can make something really cool out of just items that you've already got at home, and also how you can make the most out of being in your area by going out there, litter picking, and creating a beautiful artwork out of that litter. Alright, if you're ready to get started, then either join me outside with your bucket, gloves, and your bin bags, or alternatively join me at the cleaning and sorting part of the video with your bucket of rubbish that you've got from your house bin or your recycling bin.
So here I am on Musselburgh Beach, ready to start my litter pick. I've got my rubber gloves, I've got my bucket to put the litter in, and I've also brought some extra plastic bags for additional litter. Now, a couple of notes on health and safety. If you're a child, please bring an adult with you. If you find something sharp, such as broken glass or bits of metal or needles, please don't pick those up. Also, really dirty things like dog poo or nappies, again, just leave those alone. That goes for kids and adults. And also, very importantly, please remember not to touch your face throughout the pick, and when you're finished, just remember to wash your hands really thoroughly before doing anything else. All right, ready to start picking.
So here I am back at the studio with my bucket of rubbish, and I'm now going to sort the rubbish into a pile of what I am going to use in the artwork and a pile of what I'm not going to use in the artwork. Or rather, two piles of what I'm not going to use in the artwork, a bin one and a recycling one. So for this I'll need my gloves again. For some bizarre reason I've got two left, but hopefully you'll have a left and a right. So the things that you do want to use in the artwork have to be washable and scrubbable, and also hopefully they have either some colour or a nice texture or just anything that's going to add something to the artwork. So if it's transparent, like this bottle for example, is probably not going to add much to the artwork in terms of colour, so I'm just going to put that in my recycling pile. This chippy wrapper, for example, I can't wash this, so and it can't be recycled because it's a bit too degraded, so I'm just going to put that in the bin. Also bulky items, such as this bottle of vodka, I'm not going to be able to really glue that with any success to the artwork, even if it was, you know, a nice colour or something. But I could use the lid, so I'm going to keep the nice lid. But I'm going to recycle this bottle. There. So I now have a pile of things I'm going to use in the artwork, and I've got a couple of things for recycling and some things that are either too far gone or just not washable or just transparent like this, wouldn't add much to the artwork. So that's all for the bin. Now the things that I am going to use in the artwork I'm going to put back in my bucket. And that way I'll be able to now use the bucket for washing all this stuff. So again, just remember to keep your gloves on for this whole process, and not to touch your face throughout, because this is quite dirty stuff. Alright, there's my bucket of goodies, and I'm now going to put some of my washing up liquid in this, and you can also add some antibacterial spray into here, if you want to just make sure that it's well and truly disinfected. And now I'm going to go and put some warm water in here. So I've filled my bucket with some warm water now, and I'm ready to start washing this. So for this part, you'll need your sponge, hopefully like an old sponge, not the same one that you use for dishes. You'll see my one's been used for all sorts of different art projects, so that's fine. And I've also got a couple of like cleaning cloths, and this is just for drying the clean rubbish on. You can use any old cloths that you're not too precious about for that. Now, this might seem like a really obvious thing to explain, but obviously you need to wash all of this really, really thoroughly. Um, and I'm sure you know how to wash things, so I'm just going to get on with it. There, so I now have my pile of clean rubbish, and I'm going to let that dry for a wee bit while I set up my art materials. Okay, so I'm now ready to start making my artwork. Now, I've decided to go for a swan design because where I went in Musselburgh Beach, I found quite a lot of white rubbish. But you can, of course, go for any design that you want. I would say that for something like this, quite a simple design works best with nice simple shapes and bold colours rather than anything too complex or with too much detail. Now I've printed out my picture and I've just stuck it directly onto my piece of cardboard and trimmed it to size. So you can do that, but if you don't have access to a printer, what you can do is you can actually just draw directly onto your piece of board. Just try and get as exact an outline as you can from whatever your reference image is, whether you found it online or whether even it's your own photograph. And this will just help to guide you in your art making. So if you are going for an outline drawing, then just keep your reference image in front of you, whether it's on your phone or on your tablet or on your computer, because that way you can have a look at what colours are in it. Now I'm going to pretend this is my reference image and work on that. I'll put my swan in front of me. And then I'll put this so that you can see, hopefully. And I'm ready to start creating. Now I always work from head to tail, as it were. So rather than, for example, putting a piece here and then a piece there and a piece there, I would work methodically. That just means that you're not left with lots of awkward little gaps at the end. Okay, so I'm looking at the swan's beautiful red beak, and I'm going to start with that. Let's see what kind of colours I've got. I think this Ribena wrapper is pretty ideal. So just cut out the rough shape first, and just keep trying it on dry before you've glued it, just to make sure you've got the right shape and the right size. Come on, a little bit more here. Doesn't have to be 100% exact, but if you do want it to look realistic, then try and stick as close to your design as possible. Almost. Okay, see, that's pretty much it. Now I'm using like a universal crafts glue, so something similar to that, an all-purpose glue would be ideal. But also something like PVA glue would work very well too. I wouldn't use something like a glue stick, like a Pritt stick, just because I don't think it will be able to stick such a variety of different materials onto your board. But most other glues will probably work. Oh, I also wouldn't use like a super glue because that's a bit too heavy duty and you might end up with your fingers stuck to your artwork. Okay, ready to glue. Now, I always say less is more, just use as much as is needed, not more. Tendency is for people to use a bit too much and then you end up in a bit of a gloopy mess. So you don't want that. There we go, right. Now, as I'm preparing my second piece, what I want to keep in mind is I want to overlap each consecutive piece. That just kind of looks better basically because that means you've not got gaps in between your pieces. It makes for a more realistic artwork, but it also just makes it a bit more textured and a bit more 3D. Alright. Now, you'll also notice I'm using these kitchen scissors, basically. These are a bit better than your standard kind of paper scissors. So if you've got a set of those in the house, use them. And again, I would just remind you that if you're a child, then please get an adult to supervise you when you're using sharp tools like this. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. I think that's my swan more or less finished. You can see all the different things that I've used and how I've layered it up and overlapped things. You can also see that I've really looked at all the different shades of white in the swan and tried to kind of really get it looking 3D. Now I could just leave my artwork like this with a plain cardboard background, that's absolutely fine. But I'd quite like to include some of this background in it. So some of the shadow underneath the swan and some of the blue water around it. However, the stuff I've picked up from the beach, there wasn't really enough blue things in there. So I had another look through my bin and my recycling, and I came across this blue bag, which I was going to recycle, and that's pretty ideal. It's nice and big as well, so I'm going to use that. Okay, I think that's my picture finished. The hardest part sometimes is just knowing when to stop with these things. So you can see I've added some of the ripples in the water. You can also see I've just added a couple more lines to really make this wing here stand out. And I've added the shadow underneath the swan as well, just to make it that little bit more realistic. Um, yeah. So I really hope that you've enjoyed that workshop and that you've produced something that you're happy with. For everyone that did manage to go on the litter pick, thank you very, very much for doing that. But even if you just made your artwork out of things that you found at home, that's still a really valuable demonstration of how you can create something beautiful out of what we normally consider as rubbish. Now, for everybody that's given this a go, whether you're pleased with the result or not, I think the most important thing about this is inspiring others to really care for the environment, of course, to not drop litter, and also to view waste as a valuable resource.